All right, everybody, welcome back to Plug Talk. Will Coomer is a global entrepreneur who specializes in creating mindful social and physical environments for digital nomads around the world. Today, we are going to dive into the opportunities available in today's world for anyone to live their dream life. Will Coomer, welcome to Plug Talk. Thank you for taking the time to share your story with us today.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, awesome. So let's dive right into it, man. Who are you and what are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, so I'm Will. I come from a small town in Ohio, which most would say is a flyover state, but I'm grateful to be from there.
Cool.
And I went to High Point University in North Carolina. Was a big deal for my dad. So I said, all right, I'll do my 4 years and check out. I know a lot of online guys, stop going to school or drop out, but I did my 4 years and I'm here now. Definitely learned a lot outside of classes with connections and networking and everything. So happy for that. I just moved to Fort Myers, Florida.
Sweet.
So I've been here for about 4 weeks now.
What drew you to Fort Myers?
So one of my friends actually from school was working online sales, and he quit his corporate sales, and he quit his job purely pursue just online work. And so I was in the same space, and basically there's a guy named Naman Gaji who kind of started talking about things called monk mode, where it's like you work and you focus and you build. And so he said, hey, Will, why don't you come on down? And being from Ohio, it gets pretty cold about now. So I said, yeah, I'll come down and join you. So I've been in that kind of attack mode, monk mode ever since.
Yeah, cool. And then what is your main project right now that you have been working on since you've started that? Like, what's the intention with monk mode in like a physical standpoint? I know we were talking about a couple things earlier.
Yeah, I mean, so personally from a physical standpoint, like I think of it, there's obviously the work, which is more associated with the cash flow. For that, I'm actually part of a team with Arlen Moore, if you're familiar who that is. He has a group called the Tribe, and a group associated with that is Tribe Accelerator. So I've been a part of that, joined this past January, was in the first group there, and it really changed my life. And so now that I've had so much good happen from it and learned, Arlen himself asked to help expand the tribe. And so I'm doing that as far as work goes. So it's really great to me. I love and appreciate the group and that network, and I get to expand and add more guys to it. And then in the other realms of myself, really attacking workouts, and I recently started MMA, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, just adding that kind of facet to my skill set.
Yeah, cool. Do you follow MMA, like the UFC?
Only have started like more intensely as of late. I was definitely a fan of Connor and stuff like that when he was going big.
Yeah,
just personality and a little bit of swagger I was a fan of, but not like I couldn't name a lot of other fighters besides just the big guys.
Yeah, are you watching the fights this weekend? Like, do you know what's going down this weekend with O'Malley? Okay, gotcha. That's gonna be insane, dude. I'm really excited. It's like a 2:00 fight card because of the Abu Dhabi.
Right. Nice that it's not super late like normal.
Yeah. So let's dive into dream design. What is it and why is it important to you?
So dream design, basically, everyone says like, oh, I have a dream, right? Or I want to do this, or bucket list is another common phrase for it. Mm-hmm. And so dream design is actually the act of fully designing that dream and getting clarity on what it is you actually want, and not only just what you want, but why you want it.
Yeah. First, just to pause you right there before we get too deep into it. What are like the first, what are the initial steps you took to realize dream design was something you wanted to do? Like, how did you come to the realization that, look, this is something that I think I can put together to help a lot of people?
Yeah. So, kind of a really wild story in that area, but just initially started with a lot of meditation.
Cool.
Just finding more clarity in myself, realizing that like it happened when I was in college, and realizing that I was going to college really just to people please my parents. It wasn't actually what I wanted. I was about to enter into a master's as well, which I love to learn. Kind of hated school in that realm. And then as far as that goes, the wild story is associated with the dreaming part.
Yeah.
So basically, long story short, from COVID, I got really depressed, put on a bunch of weight. I went from like 185 to 245. And so end of December 2020, I decided, okay, this is enough. I'm going to change and get myself right. I started doing CrossFit, working out heavily, really paying attention to my nutrition. And a few months later, I had a dream where it was basically like essentially me checking out, doing like a physique check in the mirror, right? In my college dorm room, except for the fact that like I recognized my face, but my body I didn't recognize because I'd never been to that personally. I was like, wow, this is really strange. It's like my head on a totally different person. Keep working. Fast forward about 6 months. So come to like September 2021. I do a physique check in the mirror in my college dorm room and realize, holy shit, this is that version of Will that I saw in the dream about 6 months ago and didn't realize it. And so that's the whole branding and thing behind there.
Yeah. You really saw it come to fruition. Now, during that 6 months, just because I know there's a lot of people watching this that they're in a similar situation, right? They're probably going through it right now. It's what made you, not what specifically, but did you go to the gym? Was it like go to the gym every day? How did you get into getting to consistent for 6 months? Because it's one thing to like do it for a week and feel good about yourself because you haven't done it for, like you said, all that time. It's another thing to keep doing it for 6 months. So what was that? Like, did you ease into it? Is there any tips you can kind of share on how to get yourself in a routine like that?
Yeah, sure. So one, I think it's important to find something that you do like. And it's also important to recognize that even though you might like something, you might not always want to do it.
Right.
So for me, I played basketball very seriously and enjoyed the team aspect of things. So part of that reason is why I chose CrossFit. Because even though people are doing like essentially individual workouts, you're all doing your own work. It's in a group setting.
Cool.
And so you have like that kind of like encouraging environment where it's like you have the competition of the team where, there might be people in the gym doing better than you who are at a higher stance than you still want to beat them. And there's the intensity of everyone just working hard and trying to get it done at the same time. So that was something ideal for me.
Nice.
But also with that is really you can set consistency marks for yourself. So ideally, I was in the gym with college 5 to 6 times a week.
Nice.
In various, whether that be CrossFit or I'm just doing a little tune-up at the college gym. But set yourself a minimum requirement of 3 times. So no matter what, you have to fight to get in the gym at least 3 times a week. And then combined with that, really some of the biggest challenges in that way of maintaining consistency is the mental game. So in that way, you have what I like to call mental programming. And that's basically like programming, like in a sense of the computer program, like designing your mind to the point where your mind is now accepting and encouraging you to continue with these habits and pushing you to do more. And in that way, like a lot of people who start in endeavors where it's either like losing weight, starting a new business, making money, they want to accomplish goals, they encounter what's called the upper limit theorem and the upper limit effect, which is basically like the glass ceiling sort of thing. And so in that way, people can be really focused for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. Maybe they're working out 5 times a week, eating super clean, and they feel like, oh, I'm doing so good, I can celebrate a little. And they choose to celebrate. They go out on the weekend, they have dessert, they kind of pig out, right? And so you've reached the upper limit. And because you do this, which even though it might seem like a little celebration, it sends you back down on, essentially it follows a sine wave, which is, if you remember from like school, is like this. So it's like you're going up, and then because you make a decision, like picking out, spending a bunch of money, whatever, it sends you back down a little bit. So you have to program yourself to continue up, to keep pushing past that initial, like, oh, for whatever reason, my brain's telling me I need to celebrate right now or stop it. And that's the reason, because that happens, is your brain is designed to keep you comfortable. So even though you're trying to pursue things that are by all means great for you, because it's unfamiliar territory to your brain, it makes yourself think, oh, I've never been here before. We need to go back into a comfort zone.
Yeah, it's a protection mechanism, right? They talk about like fight or flight all the time. You know, if you're in an unfamiliar situation, or even you can do this with your diet, right? When you eat food, like if you haven't had sugar in 6 months or alcohol is a way better one. If you haven't had alcohol in, a long time, and you drink alcohol, you feel like dog crap the next day. Like you feel way worse than you did when you were a freshman or a sophomore in college and just going out every single night, right? Like if you take alcohol off for 6 months, you feel you chemically change much faster after you start drinking it, right? It's no coincidence. Your body it's unfamiliar now. So one thing that helped me with that, and just coming down to this whole idea of discipline and going down just kind of the right path. And it started with the gym, but really on the going outside was when you think about having those celebrations, just keep in mind how much time you've been consistent in being like clean or staying on your goals compared to how long you did it before you started. Because as soon as you've just made that decision to stray away, the momentum is going to come from the 8 years of conditioning you had that made you an alcoholic, or that made you, overweight, or that made you go the 3 years before that made you go out, because it's 3 years compared to, like you said, maybe you've only been at it, even if you've been at it 6 months, 3 years to 6 months, it may only take a couple times, a couple fun nights out, to where the next 3 days you go on a bender, and then that whole 6 months of work you just did, it's kind of out the window, because you're back on this cycle that you have 3 years worth of, build up and momentum to go into. And that's why I think people start to slip. And I don't know for sure. Like I said, I never like to come on here. Like I'm 21, almost 22 years old. I haven't had the life experience of most people, but I've experimented a lot, and I've done in the sense of where, like, I've just seen how my body reacts. And like, I know to get to know my normal state and my functioning state, you have to come to the realization, oh, I don't feel great doing this. Like, no wonder this and this didn't go for me that week, because I went out with these people who were toxic, and then I texted my toxic, like, it's just, I put myself around negative situations, and it became negative.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's a great frame. Mm-hmm. Like, especially the point on the preconditions you have, where it's like, oh, you've done this way. Yeah, because really that's like the worst part of it is, if you're going to celebrate, like I like to say, just have one day to celebrate something. Like, celebrate a win for 24 hours, and you're done. Because it might not be that brownie sundae that you had, but it's the fact that you had a brownie sundae, and then you're like, oh, okay, let's continue into the next day. And all of a sudden, like in weight loss, right, that turns into like 3, 4, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks of eating much comparably unhealthy to before.
Yeah, so cool. Exactly right. Yeah, and for like another real world example, just to bring it into context, for athletes, you look at guys like Brady, that when you make the playoffs in any sort of situation, you win, you have 24 hours, and then you have to go win again to get to the pinnacle, right? And even after that, you can enjoy the Super Bowl win go through the parade, and then all the guys that have been putting in work while you've been partying for the parade, they're ahead of you to win the Super Bowl the next year, right? It's the same thing, like music artists. They put out a good song. The greatest music artists, they're consistent because they're not hung up on that success. You didn't see Drake release his first 10 number ones, or that 1 week like last year, where I don't know how familiar in that game, but like he had every top 10. The top 10 was Drake's, and then he dropped another album 3 months later. He didn't, great, cool. This is what I do. which I like. Now let's get into see what direction I kind of want to go here. I think that was a good kind of segue into oh yeah, this is what I wanted to hit on. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone who feels like they're in a similar situation today that you were in, so let's say a year ago?
Yeah. So one piece of advice, and especially something that's helped me as of late, is almost everyone has goals and dreams. And so a lot of times the worst part is going so far down. These people will oftentimes go so far down in a negative way that they can even forget those things. And it takes, unfortunately, something very, very dramatic to switch this path around. So even if you're like not where you want to be right now, something I've found to be incredibly helpful is to think about what the version of you that you want to be would do.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, put it back into athletics, right? Like if you want to be Tom Brady or Kobe Bryant or something, say, what would they do? And start doing that. In situations, what would they do? And start behaving in that way. So for me now, especially like if I have, like I said, like a slower day or a day where my brain fights me, I say even like, what would Will do? Which is when I say Will, it's like kind of that Matthew McConaughey thing where he talks about his hero being him in 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and you behave that way. And soon enough, you start to become more and more like that person that you want to become.
Yeah. And you attract what, like you said, you also attract those people into your life. So like, I'm sure since you've taken that stance, like you said, you've attracted guys like Arlen and Tribe and, probably just been able to make deeper connections. And noticeably myself, like as I talked about this in the last one with Ibrahim, where I had a, similar, 12-month period. And like at the end of that 12 months where I really have taken it seriously, and this was probably 3 months ago, really, like some girl sends me Arlen on a limb because I look like him. Right. Like she's like, hey, I follow this guy. She travels the world on a yacht. Like she does yacht school. And she's like, I follow this guy. And like, he reminds me so much of you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I clicked on him, and I've been following Iman since I was 17, and I'd never seen Arlen. I was like, maybe I saw him, but I didn't know who he was. And so I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Cause like 17 to 21 or 17 to 20, like, again, I won't get too into it. You're on this very like up and down, like, process with what you want to do and what the business looks like, or like, what you want, but you're not consistently making decisions to get there. And then finding these guys like Arlen and Iman, and they just do it the right way all the time. And then you get around their people, like, or you start to connect with those who also connect with them. And it really simplified the game for me. I was like, you know what? These are she's not kidding. That's one of the girls that knows me better than a lot of people. And it's not a coincidence, right? I keep telling myself that lately. I'm like, it's not a coincidence. Like, it's not a coincidence. I had Ibrahim yesterday, and now I get to talk to you, and I got George Brock coming on tomorrow, right? Like, it's cool. Yeah. I'm excited about all that. Now, let's talk social media success a little bit. Why do you use social media?
So for me, I think it's best to start in this way as to like why I didn't before.
Yeah, cool.
Because I think a lot of people start in that realm, and the switch and knowing why to switch was pretty major for me. Because in college, when COVID hit, I started doing social media marketing, and I was actually like pushing my own brand on LinkedIn hard. And I had small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and entrepreneurs reach out and say, hey, Will, I don't know how to do this social media thing. Will you help me? And in that way, I was helping these businesses literally completely develop all of their social media. Like, for example, it might have been like a 65-year-old man who had no idea how to use Facebook. Mm-hmm. So I was building out those entire profiles for the businesses so they could actually operate and get new clients and talk to already existing clients during COVID. Mm-hmm. And so in that way, I realized it was a powerful tool for business. But because I was running ads and bringing in clients, the social side of things and the more personal side, aka Instagram, I always thought, oh, this is just vanity metrics, meaning, these are just numbers. They don't actually translate to anything. And if a celebrity has it, that's because they're already a celebrity or an actor or something like that. But as you were talking, you've been following Iman for a long time. So have I. I learned how to do the social media marketing side of business through Iman. And Iman actually shouted out Arlen, was like, hey, you should check this guy out. He's doing some cool stuff. Cool. And immediately, upon looking at Arlen, I saw, okay, this guy's actually using his social media to help him design his life. And through that, seeing that and from learning from Arlen, just like I already understood that LinkedIn was such a powerful tool for business and really helpful for a college student, especially if you're looking to go into the corporate world or make network connections that way, LinkedIn is essentially your life resume. And even if you're doing cool things, you can still be doing Instagram wrong.
That's a cool
so
point.
In that way, like I realize there's one, like obviously photography is important. How the photos look, the lighting, if you're in, for example, if you're in Greece and you take a picture with your friends, just kind of like, I don't even know if you can see it in the frame, but like you're just posed in front of something, maybe not even you're posed in front of a view, and like you caption a Greece, how is that doing anything for you? That's not demonstrating that you're actually in a cool place. It just looks like for guys who aren't really doing anything, maybe went to Greece.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're in these cool locations and demonstrating like, oh, this is what you're doing, and you're traveling regularly, or you just have a really cool job, or you're building yourself up personally, and you're just demonstrating these things, then it's the easiest thing in the world for others to connect in same areas. And essentially, it's like I said, your social resume and your life resume. Because in that way, people can immediately look and say, oh, this is a dude I want to hang out with or not.
And that kind of happened like similar to us, right? Like me and Will's connection was purely based on Instagram, right? Like you literally texted me and like thought it was dope. And like I looked through and it looks you look at our Instagram profiles are eerily similar, right? Like they showcase a good deal of who we are. And granted, recently, right? Like we're not saying this as experts. We're saying this as, look, we found the guys we wanted to kind of learn from and, just started doing the little things that they did. Like they always say, you find the people that are doing what you want to do and start doing little habits that they do. And this was a point I wanted to make earlier. So yes, on the Instagram thing, 100%, I agree. Like make it, once I realized it's showcasing me, I got rid of everything that showcased everyone else. Like I can help a lot of people and not have to show them off all the time, right? It's just like, this is me, this is what I'm doing. And realizing, and this is a good point I learned from all those guys, is looking at it from the lens of somebody who's looking at it, right? Like if you're, like it's like one of the greatest dating apps, right? If you're looking for someone like you want to date, you need to see the real person there. You can't see like them like in all these places they don't usually go, or like with all these people they don't usually hang out with, or just because they look cool. Or like, if you're not putting any pictures of yourself, like, yeah, you have a cool life, but they know nothing about you. So if you reach out to them, they're not going to, you think the response can be positive. They don't know who you are. You're a stranger. You don't have to necessarily be a stranger anymore on social media, because I think it's shifted to where authenticity is appreciated. So it's starting to become more and more like the real world, where like you talk to someone when they're authentic, that relationship tends to go longer, and it's the same on social now. I think when you see one profile is in good shape and like, they're active with it, and then you go to their other stuff, right? Like I'm sure people click my links all the time if they like what they see on the first page they see, which is the Instagram account that followed them. So then they're like, oh, maybe his brands are just as cool, or maybe and who knows? But in my head, yeah, it's all similar. It's from the same creative mind. And just to kind of wrap up that topic we touched on earlier about just doing the little things that those people are doing that you want to do. it can be like literally the simplest, like little habits, right? Like guys like Arlen, Iman, those guys, they read all the time. Even that was like a little thing I kind of took because they're reading all the time, but so is Jay Shetty, so is Gary Vee, so is, even this artist I listen to, Mike, he reads all the time, right? They're all doing podcasts. Like they're on podcasts, they're hosting podcasts, they're showing stuff, right? Like I was already doing that stuff, but it was like, cool. It's a good reminder. Like it's no coincidence. And then even today, like that you're wearing the Wolves hat, right? He has a playlist on Spotify, or like they have there's a Wolves playlist on Spotify, and it's like, I heard it shouted out in one of the videos that's what they would play on a lot of the background music. And I've always loved the background music on like all those guys' videos, like in that space. And so I just start playing it when I'm doing my work, because it's like those are the I want to attract like those types of people. And weirdly enough, I've shot 3 podcasts with guys that are kind of in that circle rather quickly since I started listening to it. Right? Like I connected with Adam Horowitz on LinkedIn. Like that was cool as shit to me. I was like, oh, nice. Like he put a LinkedIn, and I was like, nice. Like very cool. But it's cool because like the music is relative. It makes you feel like you're in the moment. Like it allows you to really enjoy life. And I really appreciated that. But that's what I mean on the small scale. Don't think you have to like, oh, they have this big business, so I need to start the next greatest social media marketing agency. No, start with their sleeps. Like start with, oh, what time do they wake up in the morning? Why do they do that? Go there. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur today in 2023 or 2022, I guess, but 2023?
Yeah. So the entrepreneur today is in a lot of ways different than the entrepreneur of the past, especially because of what business has become today. We're very fortunate to be in a world where a lot of especially at least in the United States, a lot of the infrastructure is already set up. So there are a lot of people who have built out the necessary businesses. And like in terms of the entrepreneurs of the past, right? Like Henry Ford, guys in that realm were doing greatly necessary tasks, which still, of course, exist today. But because we have so many people doing those and those like I said, infrastructure kind of businesses already set in place, the world has opened up to much more of a advanced. Really isn't the same word because they were still doing it before, but now this whole realm of entrepreneurship and business is opened because the world is open, especially with the development of the digital age and the internet.
Yeah.
Now I can do my business in Bali, for example, and have no problem. I don't have to be in a factory, in a corporate office doing that. So entrepreneurship today is basically, I think a lot of it is rooted in your desire to add and impact the world.
Yes, I agree.
Because yes, of course, these guys like Henry Ford changed the world. And the same person who might run Ford today, or a lot like the blue collar work, is extremely necessary, incredibly valuable. Like it's no doubt needed and vital for us all. But we have the ability to choose how we impact the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's in a lot of ways what entrepreneurship is becoming more, is people's desire and choice to impact the world in the way they want.
Yeah, and I think a really good way of putting that is, and I was just having this conversation with my mom this morning, was there's really no more excuse of it's not possible. Because there's too many outlets to show you that it is. So yes, doing it exactly someone else's way is not necessarily possible. You're not going to go through the same struggle they did. You're not going to go through the same mental. We're all here to be unique, but you do have a choice now to start that venture, and through way of the internet, you have that choice to go learn from these people that aren't either, like, maybe they're college educated, maybe they're not, but if they're going to teach you something by way of a course or by way, I know these, like Arlen talks about all the time, like they've already made the mistakes, right? Like they've already made, and they're going to showcase that to you. So don't be afraid to like yes, that's what I want to take an interest in. That's what I'm interested in. Let me go learn how to do that. Don't think the system that worked before the internet is a guarantee for success, or don't think that there's not another way. And that's usually what I like to say. I don't want to say like it's not. It definitely is, especially, but you have to approach it the right way. You have to approach it. And this is where I felt kind of trapped in college, like the system that it is. You have to do the things that the doctors are a weird example, but the guys that worked at banks or accountants did before. You have to go to the schooling, get the certifications, and do it at this year, at this time, get this score, and then you have access. But now with entrepreneurship and social media, here's how we did it. We're going to show you step by step how to do it. And you don't really have to, if you want to do it this way, great. Right.
And yeah, on that, like, I think what I said previously can really just be shortened into entrepreneurship is innovation. Right. And on the note that you're saying, there's a lady named Melissa Riva Tez. And just as a little brief intro for her, something notable, she's incredibly intelligent, but even in tech and crypto, one really just needs to say that while she was living, there was a couple guys she had stay with her. One of them was named Vitalik Buterin, who, just kind of created this little project called Ethereum and was literally paying her in Ethereum. So obviously she's really made some smart decision, is continuing to, but she has kind of a mantra and a phrase that's everything is a scam. And normally, like, I think the average person responds to that thinking like, what? The world is a scam? Why? But no, you look at what we're talking about in entrepreneurship, innovation, look at somebody like Elon Musk, right? Elon, like, people said, oh, spaceships can't land, right? You can't fly and then come back and land. He did it. SpaceX, right? Electric cars can't become whatever mainstream or affordable for people or cool. He did that too, right? He found the scams and exposed those. And that's like, I think it's from an artist. The principle is, you must know the game, the rule of the game so well that you can then break the rules. Right. And so that's when the real entrepreneurship and innovation happens, is when you're breaking these rules and finding these scams.
Cool. Yeah. What's the most fascinating thing to you about your industry?
Really what you were talking about earlier, just the fact that anything is possible.
Cool.
I love the fact that it allows people to do what they want. So if, for example, someone has been teaching, whether that be in elementary school or high school or some sort of course, and they're unhappy with the environment they're in, the area they're in, and their hours, they can now go on the internet and totally change it. And
how do I get out of this place? Yes.
Right. Yeah. So Simon Sinoek, I heard him say once that, right, you were not compensated for the number of people you interact with. You're compensated for the number of people you impact. So if we think going back to education, right? Like a teacher, because students are, we've both obviously, but recently been students, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of classes, there's kids who are like, I'm just here because I have to be, right? And, even a great teacher may really only bond and impact a few students a year. But if they move online and grow an audience and have people who are actively seeking them out, their impact can grow tenfold. In that same way, their compensation can grow tenfold. And they can do it from an island in the Caribbean or something, right?
Cool. Yeah. Very interesting.
Really, I think it's just awesome.
That aspect of education, I agree, because I was never I never really understood the course game that much, or just like the whole education, that there was different ways for education, right? Like my dad was a teacher, so I saw education done this way. My mom was in education. I never really processed the power of online education. And how, yes, when these people, but I also noticed a lot of these people that they release their, teach what they learn, they had to go through some stuff and they had to be patient and go through the process and really trust. For me, it's always been, do I think I could help a lot of people now? Yes. Do I want to refine my skills and really go through this journey the right way and provide the ultimate value later on? Yeah. I would feel more comfortable. I could impact enough people doing what I'm doing. When we start to make it, I know it'll monetarily, help me succeed. I want to make sure it's like one of the best things I've got, that I'm putting out. But it's cool because I'll be able to go back in 2 years from now or whatever year I decide to do it and talk about this conversation, right? And talk to those kids that yes, we think we can provide value, and yes, we are doing a lot of cool stuff, but we're not going to rush into this because, like you said, it's a long-term game. My always thing, and it's with the podcast, but it's with online education, is where's the ceiling, right? Like there isn't really there's no, at least for the time being, like there's no cap to how long you can have. There's no time expiration date on a podcast. I'll sit down and do this the rest of my life. It's fun to me, right? I get to learn. I probably am expediting my growth alone, just being able to talk to all these people like I have the last couple of years, right? So yeah, there's no limit to education. And I think once you can pinpoint that, it causes you to want to learn more. It causes me to want to learn more because I want to impact more people by just garnering higher intelligence from people that I trust. But that's the important part. Making sure it's doing the homework. What are these people doing? Why are they doing it? What's their why? What do you really relate to them? And it's okay if you don't agree on everything. I learn stuff from people I don't always respect, right? But I still learn stuff from them. And just keeping an open mind. Now, some of these questions are a little more fun. Just getting into it. I guess we'll do this one now because the next three are more locked in on you, and then it'll be a good way to kind of wrap it. What are 2 questions you have for the host?
Yeah. So one is definitely, where do you see the podcast going, and what are your goals to do with it?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked this. The podcast for me is, and podcasting in general, I just talked about this. It's about removing the label for me. I think podcasts they're good conversations where people can garner value. And anytime I've tried to put pressure on it as like, it's the next big show or it's the next this, it's the next that, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. For me, it's going to be shared multiple ways. I love the ability I have to, based on those conversations and going through these, how I want to market it, right? How I want it to be broadcasted, whether it's part of Plug Talk, whether, it's usually I live in and not or, so it is part of Plug Talk. And a year from now, it'll probably be part of a much bigger project or, sooner rather than later. Not the same way, but the same value, the same conversation, right? So for the podcast, for me, I see it as something I'll always do. I've come to that pretty recently. I like I just like getting in the room and talking to people, and obviously it adds stuff on the reputation side to where it's a good way for me to connect with people. I've done a lot of business with people I've had on the podcast, but that was never my intention. It's just, you get to know someone and you want to work with people you trust. So, you come to their mind when they're thinking about social media management, or when I'm thinking about Bali, I'll think of Will Coomer now because I know he's a good guy and he's got like a good amount of my interest, right? So yeah, the podcast for me, where do I see it? I see it still happening, how it looks and what it is. I think if you can find me, you're going to find the podcast. And I want it to be a place where if you find me, you can find a connection, you can find value, you can find what you want to, really dive into. Because the people I'm having on here are selfishly to help myself advance because I know it'll help other people based on what I learn and how I interpret it. So a big thing for me next year is not having a lot of people on that I don't directly aspire to be like, or don't think there's something I can pull from. There's not a real pull for me to have someone who's in a completely different, industry or realm, unless, that success or like that mindset I can tell is similar. So yeah, it'll still be here. What it looks like will be whatever the world decides it's going to look like, or it's going to be whatever everyone interprets it as.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So then second question, right, is how do you plan out the things you're looking to do now? Like in the reference to goals, and you can work back the podcast in if you'd like. Where do you see yourself moving and making impact?
Yeah, taking it day by day has been big. I try to take typically like to set a schedule, at least of some sort, the night before, or just as things come up. I placed one thing I do that I don't know if a lot of people do it, but anytime something that comes up that I have to get, that I know I want to take care of, if it can't happen today, I just go to that schedule and look at the days that I haven't started jotting stuff. And I just put it on a random day. Like it might be Monday, and I know whatever is going to tire me out on Monday, I'm not going to feel like doing it on Tuesday. If I know I can do it on Wednesday, I'm not going to put pressure on myself to get it done Monday or get it done Tuesday. I just put it in my calendar, Wednesday. Now, when I go back and see, what do I have to do tomorrow? I don't feel like I've planned anything. There's 3 ideas of stuff that I just put off that are now great. That's what I do on Wednesday. That's what I can take care of. But I guess the other, like the main part of that question, like where I see myself making an impact, definitely on in a way of connecting people. I think my impact on everyone and just everyone I've always met is like, I can be that connector. I embrace it. I love like being the key that, someone like unlocks just through someone they met through me or something. Like when it takes me a while to trust people, and it takes me a while to like respect people enough to give them, not give them, but present them with opportunities, I think, or even think about them in an aspect of that where I know it would help them. Like they're not going to be on my mind necessarily like that, for the next big opportunity, unless they've kind of had an impact, or there's someone I really respect. Right. But yeah, that patience to have high value relationships and then connect people is really it's going to be, through Plug Collect. We talk like all the time. We're the world's first collaborative social marketing agency. So everyone who works with me on any sort of social media management or podcast management, heading into next year, they'll be in a group chat with people that are also working with the brand and all the other retainers, by city, by whatever. And it'll start to craft, like you said, the course and, everything else that, I want to build, but I do the business as a direct result of that. The reason I do the business is to connect with more people, to help more people, but also I see it as an outlet. Oh, they believe in me. They'll also connect with people who also believe in me. So why not? Business needs to be more collaborative and less like, obviously I have my private deals and my private relationships. That's typically out of respect for those people that I know are not in my aspect. The people I do business with that want to know we're working together, that want to do that, I'm your best friend to have, right? It's like, it's cool. I'll help because we see the exponential growth, and then you just keep your own stuff private. But yeah, so it'd be a connector. Be cool. But so what's something you recently changed your opinion about?
Actually, going back to the whole choosing to act and become that like higher version of yourself, was a reframe of a quote, came from a reframe of a quote from Fight Club. Have you ever seen the Fight Club movie? Okay. Well, Tyler Durden is essentially like part of the protagonist. It's a wild movie, but the quote is, self-improvement is mental masturbation.
Gotcha.
And I might have, or self-improvement is masturbation.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, I was like, no way. Like, what? Like, because I was a guy so invested in personal development, I've always wanted to become that best version of oneself, right? And in pursuit of that. That's when I realized, okay, that's not really talking shit on self-improvement. That's just saying, kind of fuck all that and just be it. Actively choose to be and become that what you want to be. And everything else will happen anyways. So
is there anyone in particular that really put you on? I know we've talked about Arlen. Is there anyone else that you've really, I guess have in a sense idolized, or like we talked about those guys earlier, like you just tried to do the little things they did to kind of get you to where you're at now and obviously where you're going? I'm sure you still follow people and I create new habits all the time. But yeah.
So definitely for me, especially I go back to thinking about the people who really put me on to the this online game and really just the personal development game. I got into personal development and everything like that through Kobe Bryant.
Cool.
So in that way, definitely the impact he had in basketball. But if you look at the trajectory of his life afterwards, the dude literally won awards for writing a poem, and I believe fully would have done just as well or better in business.
I didn't know that.
Than what he did in basketball. Yeah, I don't know if it's an Oscar or what, but he wrote it's a now I can't remember what it's called, Life in Basketball or something like that is the poem, and it's really is beautiful, and he literally won an Academy Award or one of those.
Yeah.
And then as well, Andy Frisella is the other guy. He's most people now I think know him because of 75 Hard. But
he's the guy that did 75 Hard. Okay.
But he's been in the podcast game for I think maybe more than 10 years now. But he used to have a podcast called the MF CEO Project, which is the Mother Effing CEO Project. And basically he built his business from nothing. And I think now is at the point of being a billionaire. And broke down literally everything, principle by principle. And it was just it sounded like growing up in this small town that I'm from, there's a lot of blue collar work and a lot of guys. And he talked like that. He talked with intensity. He sounded almost a little bit like the blue collar work of no bullshit. This is how it is. And so he really put me on to everything and just starting to emulate and use, the pieces of advice he said. He was a big proponent of reading as well. So doing a lot of those little things that he recommended just kept adding up for me as well.
Yeah, and any just because I mean to ask the guest this, but because I just like the guests to tell their story. These aren't super specific things people need to know. But what as you said, you're a reader, entrepreneur. I read 10. I try to get 10 pages a day done every day. What are some book recommendations you have for guys 18 to 25 that are in have similar aspirations?
So I normally give 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's hard to remember even more than that.
Yeah, well, especially because I know even my friends who are in entrepreneurship and shit, they might not even like reading, period. And I love reading, and I know how helpful it can be. So I care about getting more people to read. Cool. So one, for someone who thinks they don't like reading yet, really the answer is you kind of just read the wrong books, or you just were forced to read shit you didn't like in high school or college, right? So for someone who's not a reader, the book I recommend immediately is The Traveler's Gift. Not only is it very much in this realm of becoming one's best self, et cetera, but it's also told in a story format that is really interesting. So you're learning and going on a little bit of an adventure, which makes it really easy to read the book. It's not like you're staring at a textbook or anything like some of these others might be.
When did you read that one?
I read that the first time my sophomore year of college.
Cool.
And I read it probably 3 or 4 times a year.
Really interesting. All right, I'm gonna get that one. I wrote it down. I was
it's pretty short and literally you can read it. I don't know when the fastest I've ever read it was, but I think it's definitely easy to do in a week, even. And then the other ones are, I think, I cover are Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Of course. Yep.
Financial literacy is something I care a lot about, and basically these systems are the systems we currently have are not really made to directly help people become wealthy, and so I think a lot more has become popularized with that. It is actually good to become wealthy, and you should, because then you can do what you want and help other people you want, and then you're adding also positive impact and value to the world. And Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great way to start kind of understanding that world. as far as social dynamics and understanding people go. I always recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's very much a classic.
Mm.
And that, even though it is a little bit more, not quite like a textbook, but it's just so jam-packed with helpful information, it can take it's a little bit more of an intense read that you really do want to pay attention to. But truthfully, if you utilize and apply the things from that book, the way you interact with the world and other people will change in a greatly positive manner, and your life will change because of it. So those really are three main ones. Two that I've read recently that I would really recommend everyone to read, but they're definitely not a dip your toes in. You have to be committed to them, just because they're, I think, respectively like 900 and 1,000 pages. The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged.
All right. Fountainhead. I don't know if I'll be there by this year, but maybe next year. And what's the other one called?
Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged?
Shrugged.
Okay. Shrugged. Atlas Shrugged.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to hear the first day you decided to read a 900-page book. Like, what got you to that? Like, what made you really have you finished either of them, or do you just like you read them?
Yeah, I finished them both.
Oh wow!
I finished the first one. I think I started it at the beginning of May and finished it by like early June. That was actually, I was reading it when I was in Bali.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, helpful on a 20-hour plane flight. 20 hours flying.
No, that's a great point. Yeah.
So honestly, I had known about both of the books for a while, and they had been on my list. But I had kind of a personal revelation development of like, then the reason preface that, the reason I hadn't read them was because it was like, okay, I'm reading these, 200-page books, 300-page books, and it's like, I can really cruise through these, but this puppy looks thick. Like, it's like I said, like 900 pages. It's really thick. And I was like, is it that good? Like,
yeah.
Or is this just one of those, like books that people recommend that's like, oh, this is like the Odyssey or something, right? Which I'm now at the point where it's like, oh, classics are classics for a reason. There's a lot in there. But I just said, okay, this is a challenge. Not even really knowing what the book was about, but this is a challenge I'm going to take on and just break it down, because the more you challenge yourself with tasks that seem not even impossible, but just seem hard and lengthy and annoying, that aren't immediately easy, and the more you get into the delayed gratification game, meaning you're not doing the instant gratification, the better your life gets. So I made that decision like, okay, this is something I'm going to take on. And started with The Fountainhead, was so impressed and loved it so much that it was like a no-brainer. Like, why would I not read Atlas Shrugged? And Atlas Shrugged was even better.
Cool.
So,
would you say in that order, or did it not matter?
Most definitely in that order, I would recommend. You don't have to, and they're not purely connected. Like the story, it's not like a 1 and 2. It's there are definitely connected themes.
Cool.
But yeah, it's basically like, once you do a hard thing, it seems way easier. So the second one was easier than the first, even though it was longer.
Yeah. No, you gave me like 5. So the one I would put you onto now, I don't know if you've read it, is The Buddha and the Badass by Vishen. Yeah,
Okay.
it's by Vishen. I don't want to butcher his last name. He was just on Jay Shetty's podcast, and he talks about his 6-phase meditation technique. And it was really coincidental for me because the chapter I read before I got in the car to drive home, like 2 days ago, was about his like 6-phase technique. And I was like, oh, what podcast do I want to listen to? Jay Shetty released one yesterday. It's this author of the book I'm reading right now. So I was like, let's watch it. And he spends the whole show, because he made a whole entire book about that technique. So I was like, he gives you a lot of it in the book, like in one chapter that I use every day now. But he wrote a whole nother book on that whole 6-phase. So Buddha and the Badass is really good. I just got to a really cool part, and I want to make this kind of notion, because we talked about the mental side of everything. And I know we're getting ready to wrap this up. They talked about the law of attraction today in like chapter, I think I'm in 9, so I'm towards the end. And he doesn't refute the law of attraction. He looks at it, he allows you to look at it a different way. He says you don't become what you want and you desire, you become who you are. And you attract who you are. And that's what your external reality looks like. It's, we've heard it all the time. It's a culmination of the decisions you've made. And, Ibrahim actually said it on his a video I watched of his yesterday, where you're manifesting all the time. And then I read this, and it was about, you don't become what you want and desire, or you don't get what you want and desire. You get who you are. You get like those level of energy things, and that helped me with relationships a lot. Like, it helped me think back to relationships and being like, well, you know what? You've always been on this trajectory. So when you really think about those things, if those people weren't also heading on like those similar levels, it's like, right, I became someone bigger, became a different version, and they're no longer who that is anymore. So you have to continue to evolve. If you don't evolve, you get stuck, right? My negative relationships were when I kind of felt like I lost myself because I just continually did what they did, right? Like, I stopped evolving, and now I keep evolving. And yes, you lose people that, would have thought similar, but it allowed me to think, what are they doing? Like, wow, they're not necessarily happy with where they're at. Those aren't people that are going to help, it's a tough pill to swallow, but it helped me accept things a lot. And then any event that I got hung up on, whether it was socially or just, thought I should be there, realized, oh, well, actually it was either good or bad. You have to be willing to accept that also, if I wasn't on my habits and that thing didn't happen, there's a reason for that. I didn't work my ass off because I thought the opportunity was in the bag, right? It wasn't it was who you were. And that's why you thought the opportunity was going to happen. Now you took that, like you said earlier, that gratification, tried to ride it for the 4 days before it actually went through, and lost it. And gosh, dude, I can't even tell you, being like an entrepreneur from 17 to 21, the deals, like, I was in luxury sales. I still am, but with motors and stuff when the market was hot. And like, the amount, I had one deal, and I'm going to say this because towards the end, where I had this double-decker bus from England. It was in the Macy's Day Parade, and this guy, he turned it into a food truck, and it was like my biggest listing ever, right? I've had this business since I was 17. It's been my biggest commission. I've had 3 people come, like, literally they all came down to the last day and like just went, like, don't know where they went. They just backed out. And then the 4th lady gave us a deposit and didn't show up to pick up the car, and we never heard from her again. And I went to see my sister in Austin, and I was feeling good. I was like, we just got it lined up. She was one that we had lost earlier that we got back. So I was like, surely she wants it now. And, I know for a fact, when I think back to it, that same dedication I took to find that lady, to execute that deal, to wore off when I thought the deal was done, or I got upset because she left or whatever. Then she came back, rode my high horse, flew out to Texas to go see my sister celebrate. And like, just, no, hey, they never showed up. Sorry. I was like, that's crazy. She submitted a deposit, but it's very, like, it's so real to me. What does the world need more of?
I think the world needs more of people, and I don't mean this in any like, we need more numbers of people. I mean, we need more people actually being themselves.
Yes.
And doing what they want to do and having an impact in that way. Because when you get more of that, you lose kind of these negative, like the group think things. You get more individuality, and it makes the world better when people are doing exactly what they want to do. They are most fulfilled. They feel the best. They interact with others in a more positive way because they want to be where they are and doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Cool.
So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Now, all right, well, plug us in. Where can we connect with you? How can we find you? And yeah.
Yeah. So definitely best way to find me is on Instagram at will.coomer. So it's just my first and last name with a period in between. Mm-hmm. That is most definitely the best way to connect.
Cool.
I might not get to it right away, but if you follow, I'll for sure pretty much look at your account and talk. Send me a DM.
Yeah.
Over. We'll go from there.
Of course, man. Always open to connect, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. Seriously, I think people are going to gain a lot from this. And just thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jack. Thank you.